Tea composting. The easiest and more practical method of composting is the tea composting, or producing tea compost. Compost tea is a compost extract from dried animal manure. On this method, we recommend to use manure from farm animals commonly available in your area, such as cow, goats, horse, and chicken. It is not advisable to use fresh animal manure as it burns our plants. And it also contains bacteria that can cause pests and diseases to our plants. Aside from that, fresh animal manure also stinks. Avoid using manure of cats, dogs, pigs, and even humans, as it may contain potential diseases that might harm human health. This is how to make compost tea. We can use a 20-liter bucket of water or 50 liters container. Or in this case, we will use a 200 liters drum of water. Place the dried animal manure, approximately 5 kilos, into a cloth bag or a sack. Leave this animal manure soak into the water for about 24 hours. After 24 hours, we have a compost tea readily available for our plants. What if we do not have dried animal manure available in our area? We can use fresh leaves, especially leguminous plants like ipil-ipil and even cacahuate leaves. We can also use fresh wild sunflower leaves. We need to cut the leaves in a very small pieces, like the size of around 2 centimeters, and soak it into the water. For a 200 liters drum of water, we need to put at least 5 kilograms of chopped leaves. Soak the leaves for at least 2 to 3 weeks before using it. How can we apply this compost tea to our plants? 1 part of compost tea should be mixed and diluted into 6 parts of water. After mixing, take some of this mixture and pour it around the base of the plant. So easy. We can apply compost tea to our plants at least once a week, especially during its growing stage. Stop applying compost tea to the plants when it starts to flower and bearing fruit. When you are not using all the compost tea at the same time or day, we need to cover it to avoid attracting insects and other pests. Consume this compost tea for not more than 2 weeks. Worm compost, or vermicompost. Another kind of organic fertilizer is the worm compost, or known as vermicompost. Kitchen waste can be composted with worms. This special worm is called the African night crawlers. This type of worm can consume biodegradable materials, the same as their size, every day. The materials are being composted, are consumed by the worms, then excreted as worm cast. This process binds the nutrients consumed into the form that can be used by plants. How to prepare beds for worm compost? Worm colonies can be built in a similar way to a pile compost heap, with materials added as they become available. Prepare a place to grow our worms and produce worm compost. For this demonstration, I am showing you how to prepare the beds for the worms. We have a cement box with a size of 3 feet wide and 12 feet length at 1 foot depth. Put a thin layer of soil at the bottom. Then place the chopped leaves or grasses added with dried animal manure on top of it. We can do it by layers until we reach at least 1 foot height. Put plenty of water until it flows to the bottom of the bed. Then cover it with plastic or sacks. Allow to decompose for at least 7 days before putting the worms. The worm colony must not become heated by the microbial action that takes place in normal composting. Wormery. Worms are an effective way to break down kitchen waste, such as vegetables and fruit scraps. They will eventually eat their bedding as well as their kitchen waste. We can build our own wormery. This is a vermicomposting using a large bucket or container. This is good for a household, not only to control solid waste, but also to produce worm cast that are nutrient-rich soil conditioner. How to make wormery? Choose the container you want to use. It is advisable to use at least 50-liter size of plastic container. Make a drainage hole at the bottom side of the container. Put gravels inside the container up to 6 inches thick. Then put planks of wood to separate compost from gravel. Then put the bedding materials such as a mixture of soil, dried animal manure, and compost. This layer should be at least 8 inches thick. On top of this, we can put the decomposing materials like leaf molds, shredded newspaper, or old garden compost. Then we add the worms. Then we put new kitchen waste. Then on top is the damp newspaper. Cover the lid. Every time you put new kitchen waste, place them on the side of the container. In this way, we allow the kitchen waste to decompose first before the worms can eat them. Make sure that the wormery is always moist. We can collect the liquid from wormery by putting faucet at the bottom. We can also apply this vermicompost liquid as fertilizer. Fish emulsion. Fish emulsion is a liquid organic fertilizer that are rich in amino acid or nitrogen that come from fish byproducts and waste. Materials in making fish emulsions are fish scraps like heads, gills, intestines, or even the whole fish. We just need to chop it in small pieces. We also need a plastic container, but we can also use clay jars plastic bucket, or even a plastic 200 liters drum. It depends on how much fish emulsion you need for your garden. Put the fish and its waste up to half of the container. Then add water until it reaches to the top of the container. Leave at least 2 inches space before the lid. Cover the container, but not airtight. We can use paper and plastic to cover. The fish will be fermented for 2 to 3 months before harvesting. When harvesting fish emulsion, we can scoop it or we can use a strainer to separate the fish waste from its water. How are we going to apply fish emulsion in our garden? For every 1 cup of fish emulsion, add and mix it to 18 liters of water. Then water it around the base of the plant. You can apply fish emulsions to your plants once a week during growing stage and stop the application when the plant starts flowering and bearing fruit. What is green manure? This is a method wherein a farmer cultivates the land and planted leguminous plants such as mung beans, pigeon pea, cowpea, peanuts, soybeans, rice beans, and others to maintain or improving soil fertility and even controlling weeds. These cover crops are grown within the intention of turning them back to the soil. These particular plants have the capacity to absorb nutrients, especially nitrogen, from the air, and they will release this nutrient into the soil through its roots. When the plants are fully grown or it shows flowers, the farmer can plow or till the land together with the plants and mix them into the soil. Once tilled in and begun decomposing, green manures will start improving soil structure as well as provide food for microbes. Green manure can be associated with the practice of farming in the ancient time recorded in the Old Testament of the Holy Bible. The people of Israel called this as Sabbath. In the book of Leviticus chapter 25, verses 3 to 5, it was written, "For 6 years sow your fields, and for 6 years prune your vineyards, and gather their crops. But in the 7th year, the land is to have a year of Sabbath rest, a Sabbath to the Lord. Do not sow your fields or prune your vineyards. Do not reap that grows of itself, or harvest the grapes of your untended vines. The land is to have a year of rest." Green manure is growing cover crops to give rest to the land and restore its fertility. This will allow the soil to rest and prepare for the next cropping season for more bountiful harvest. On the same manner, we humans need to have rest from 6 days of work. We may need to allow our bodies to rest and prepare again for a week long of productive and fruitful life. We may spend our rest day, our Sabbath, to contemplate what God has done into our lives and devote ourselves into worship and commune with Him. In relation to green manure, it is a farming method for farm sustainability and promotes high yield and profitability. We learned some basic and practical ways to make our own organic fertilizers. This time, I want to teach you and demonstrate to you about different liquid solutions as fertilizers that we can make at home. On this topic, we adopt the Korean natural farming and the Jadam natural farming technology. First, let us learn about fish amino acid, or also known as fermented liquid animal protein. Fish amino acid derives from fish and its waste extracted using crude sugar. Fish amino acid have a high content of nitrogen needed by the plants to develop tissues to grow and mature. We can also use golden apple snail for this. Fish amino acid is easy to make. We need to have a plastic container or a clay jar. We also need 1 kilogram of fish or fish waste, like the head of the fish, gills, entrails, and even its blood. We also need 1 kilogram of crude sugar. We also call this molasses, muscovado, or brown sugar. Mix them thoroughly until the fishy smell is suppressed. Place them inside the container and cover it, but not airtight. You can use paper and tie it with string to cover the container. We can ferment the fish and crude sugar for about 10 days. The liquid portion is the fish amino acid. We can use a strainer or a clean cloth to separate the fish amino acid. We can store it in an empty plastic bottles and it will last for 6 months. How can we apply fish amino acid in our garden? For every 10 ml of fish amino acid, mix and dilute it to 1 liter of water, then spray it directly to the plants. We can apply fish amino acid into our garden by spraying it into the leaves of the plants at least once a week for best result. We will stop applying fish amino acid when our vegetable plants start flowering or giving fruits. Jadam liquid fertilizer. Now let us learn about Jadam liquid fertilizer. Jadam literally means in Korean name Jayunul Danmum Saramdul. This is the fertilizer that we can apply to our soil before planting. This will allow our soil to have nutrient available as the plant grows. It is so cheap to make this liquid fertilizer that after cutting grasses or wild plants, place them inside the drum until it will all filled to the top. Press it down and put stone on top of grasses to give an extra weight so it will not float. Then fill it with will cover grasses. Add a handful of leaf mold and close the lid. Leaf mold soil are those decomposed leaves in the forest or under the trees. The fermentation will take place within 10 days before we can harvest liquid fertilizer. but we have to consume liquid fertilizer within 30 days. Otherwise, the longer we keep it, the more the smell of the liquid fertilizer become unpleasant. We can apply it throughout the growth of the plants. For every 1 liter of Jadam liquid fertilizer, we add and mix to 20 liters of water. If you use Jadam liquid fertilizer as a basal fertilizer, we use 1 cup of liquid fertilizer in every hole for planting. We can also apply Jadam liquid fertilizer as full-year application with the ratio of 1 liter liquid fertilizer and 20 liters of water. We can spray directly to the leaves and stem of the plants. We do this at least once a week. Calcium phosphate. Calcium phosphate is the plant nutrient needed to induce flowering. In making calcium phosphate, we need animal bones, preferably pork or beef bones. First, we need to collect animal bones from the market. We can separate the meat from the bones by boiling it. After boiling, let it cool. The bones will be grilled until it will become charcoal black. Then let it cool. The charcoal bones will be pounded to break it in small pieces. For 100 grams of charcoal bones, we add 1 liter of coconut vinegar inside the container. We cover it with paper and tie it with string. Fermentation will take place in 30 days before harvesting. Make sure that we put proper label indicating the date it was made. We use a strainer to filter the calcium phosphate. We can store it in an empty plastic bottle and it could last for 1 year. Make sure that we store calcium phosphate in a dark, cool area or room. How to use calcium phosphate in our garden? First, we need to mix 10 ml of calcium phosphate into 1 liter of water. Spray this solution directly to the leaves of the plant. I recommend to spray our plants with calcium phosphate every 7 days, starting when the plants start to produce flowers. The next liquid fertilizer that we're going to make is the calcium. Calcium is the most important nutrient for flowering plants. Calcium helps strengthen flowers. It prevents fruit abortion or prevent young fruit to die and fall. Calcium also contributes to better absorption of carbohydrates and protein for plants to grow faster. Calcium also makes the fruit hard and sweet. This is how to make calcium as liquid fertilizer. First, we need to collect eggshells. We have to wash, dry, and crush the eggshells. We put the crushed eggshells in a pan. Turn on the fire on the stove and pan fry it. And pan fry it brown in color. Set it aside and let it cool. We need plastic container to ferment or extract the calcium from the eggshells. Place eggshells inside the container and add coconut. For every 100 grams of eggshells, we add 1 liter of coconut vinegar. Close the container using paper and string. Fermentation will take place for 20 days before harvesting the calcium. Make sure you put proper label indicating the date it was made. Filter calcium by using strainer and store the liquid calcium into an empty plastic bottle. Store it in a dry and cool area or room. It can be kept for up to 1 year. How to use calcium in our garden? First, we need to mix 10 ml of calcium into 1 liter of water. Spray this solution directly to the leaves of the plant. I recommend to spray our plants with calcium every 7 days, starting when the plant starts to produce flowers. Fermented fruit juice. Another liquid fertilizer is the fermented fruit juice. Fruits are rich in vitamins and minerals. It also contains fruit hormone and fruit enzymes that helps flowering, strengthens stems and branches, increases sugar levels, and stimulate both roots and tuber growth. It also helps fruit to stay attached to the plant and can give an increase in fruit quality and yield. It can be sprayed onto the soil to improve soil structure. The residue left over after the liquid is extracted can be used as fertilizer. It can help with wastewater treatment and reduce odor. I will show you how to make fermented fruit juice. First, let us collect ripe fruits. It is recommended to use at least 3 different kinds of local fruits. If you can gather more than 3, it is better. If there is not enough variety of fruits, sweet yam, sweet potato, tomato, squash, or cabbage can be used as substitutes. Measure 3 kilograms of fruits and 1 kilograms of crude sugar, muscovado, brown sugar, or molasses. Place them inside the container and the crude sugar by layer. Place sugar on top of the fruits. Keep the container under cover in cool, dry area. Fermentation will complete within 15 days. Drain the liquid off the solids, then put it in airtight bottles. It then can be kept for up to 1 year. How to use fermented fruit juice? For every 10 ml of fermented fruit juice, dilute it to 1 liter of water. Spray onto plants at the early stage of flowering and fruiting. Spray the plants at least once a week. Fermented plant juice. This time, we're going to learn how to make fermented plant juice. This is a liquid fertilizer produced by green plants that contain nutrients stored inside chlorophyll, plant hormones, plant tissues, and also beneficial microorganisms that are found on plants' leaves. The best plant for us to ferment is the plant that grows naturally under local conditions. In this case, we are using young banana trunk. We can use camote tops or the morning glory, amaranth or water hyacinth, or any plants that contains high amount of water. Pick and collect the green plants in the morning before sunrise, and preferably when the weather is fine and sunny. Avoid collecting plants during the rain or straight after the rain. Remove any contaminants such as dirt, but avoid using water. Cut them into 5 to 10 centimeter long pieces. For every 2 kilograms of green plants, add and mix into 1 kilogram of muscovado or crude sugar, brown sugar or molasses. Stir the plant material and sugar together in a wide container or basin. Cover the top with newspaper and let it sit for 1 to 2 hours. Pour the mixture into a clay jar or plastic container. We can fill the container up to around 2/3 full mark. The container should not be full so the air can circulate inside. We can also put a heavy object like stone or brick on top of the mixture to force out any air. Cover it with paper and tie it with a string. If there is no liquid coming out of the mixture, add clean water, level to the top of the mixture. Cover it again and put it under the shade or dark, cool room. Fermentation will complete in 15 to 21 days. Separate the liquid from the solid with a strainer. Liquid is your fermented plant juice. It can be stored in an airtight plastic bottle container for 1 year. How to use fermented plant juice? For every 10 ml of fermented plant juice, dilute it to 1 liter of water. Spray directly to the plants in all stages of growth. Using fermented plant juice will help the plant to absorb more nutrients. It was recommended to have higher concentration of fermented plant juice during rainy season and a lower concentration during the hot season.